I've been shooting with the Sony A7R3 for about 3 years now. I've shot a lot of daytime photos and probably even more nighttime photos. Today, I will share the settings that I use for daytime and nighttime photos so you can save it to your custom 1 and custom 2 settings. I mentioned A7R3, but I am guessing that this can be applied to many other Sony cameras, so let's get into it. First, let's get into the daytime settings. I turned this wheel to go to aperture priority mode. Now you can turn this wheel on the front or back to adjust your aperture. By clicking the right wheel, you can jump into ISO settings. Here we will go with Auto ISO, lowest at 100 and highest at 25,600. I wouldn't worry too much about the highest ISO because at daytime it rarely jumps that high. Now click the left wheel to get into drive mode. I use drive continuous shooting mid because I found that that's the happy medium for me. High is too quick. It takes too many photos within split seconds. I saw that I was wasting too many frames and had to delete too many photos when I got back home. And I found that low is too slow for catching split second moments. File format RAW. With this camera, I just never shot RAW plus JPEG. I like to edit my RAW files. I shoot in compressed RAW. This results in half the file sizes. So the file sizes go from 80 megabytes, which is really huge, to 40 megabytes, which is much more manageable. And the best side effects from this is the much faster processing speed. I remember shooting in uncompressed RAW. When I go crazy with burst shooting, I would have to wait for a very long time for the camera to finish processing all the photos before I jump into video mode. Of course, after experiences like these, I learned to take videos first, then jump into taking photos. I never had any issues with the quality of my photos, so I recommend this. I'm not gonna worry about the JPEG quality and the image size, but let's just set it to the best quality. For focusing, I use area wide. I never had any problems shooting this way. I like to shoot in crowded places and many times, my subjects are not in dead center, so I found that this works the fastest for me. But I can't definitively say that one focus mode is better than the other. I think you would have a preference or something that works for you. So I advise that you go with what you are comfortable with because I'm going to set back button focus on a different mode. Jump to camera 2, page 8, custom key for photos, and set multi-select center button to focus standard. This way, when I'm focusing with the shutter button, I get area wide. And when I press the multi-selection button, I get focus center. So I get best of both worlds. I use the shutter button more than 90% of time, but in very tricky situations with lots of foregrounds and potentially distracting elements, I use this button as the back button focus. I set custom 4, which is the trash button, to touch operation selection. This way I can turn on touch selection to change my autofocus spot. I use this when I'm using the camping or fishing technique. But sometimes when I use the viewfinder, my face touches the screen and messes up the focusing spot. So in those situations, I turn this off by clicking the trash button. The minimum shutter speed, I have it set at 1/250th of a second. I mix a bit of run and gun style street photography. The ISO stays very low at daytime anyways, so I have it set at 250. If you do mostly run and gun style street photography, then you might want to bump this up to 1/500th of a second. For metering mode, I use entire screen average. I have experimented with other modes, but I found that this mode gives me the most consistent results. I like to have my exposure compensation anywhere from -0.3 to -1 to protect the highlights. When shooting in RAW, the dynamic range from this camera can cover almost any situations, so I wouldn't worry about it. But underexposing a bit is a good practice. Auto white balance works great for me. I always touch up the white balance when I'm editing anyways. And this is how you save the settings. There are only a few things that I change for my nighttime settings, but some people might only watch this part of the video, so I will do a quick rundown. Jump to aperture priority mode, focus mode area wide, jump to camera 2, page 8, custom key for photos, and select multi-select center button to focus standard. Drive mode burst mid, compressed RAW. This saves storage and buffering time without sacrificing quality. Shutter speed is the first thing that I'm changing, 1/125th of a second for slowest. I shoot less run and gun style at night. I'm searching for well-lit areas and I'm a bit more meticulous with my composition. So 1/125th of a second works well most of the time while keeping the ISO a bit lower. Auto ISO low at 400 and high at 32,000. I shot a photo in near pitch darkness in Vietnam and it became one of my favorite photos, and that photo was shot in 32,000 ISO. So I know it would almost never get this high again and it will still produce acceptable images. It will only go this high if it is really dark with bare minimum light available. In brightly lit cities, it is near impossible to get this high. Metering mode, entire screen average. I want to advise against using highlight metering because the contrast at nighttime is so great that it will make everything other than your highlights super dark. In that case, it will introduce a lot of noise when bringing back those shadows in post. At night, my exposure compensation settings differentiate a lot depending on the situation. It goes anywhere from -0.7 to -2. I need to see the back screen to see how my camera is responding to a given situation. Auto white balance, and you will save this at number 2. That is the end of what I wanted to walk you through. You can do whatever you want with number 3. Maybe you can set it up for video mode with vlog shooting. After I got into YouTube, I had to shoot lots of B-rolls, so I have it set up to video mode. So this is it. I hope this helped you set up your Sony A7R3 for photography. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next one.